You're still watching Biz Check right here on KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara. Now shifting focus from matters of tea production and consumption and delving into ICT. It is pegged to be the driver of the fourth industrial revolution. And I'm handing you over to my colleague Brian Kimani, who engaged the Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo about the upcoming Connect Summit that is going to be held on the 2nd of April, where KBC Channel 1 is the official media partner for this particular important summit. To you, Brian.
Kenya has undergone tremendous transformation in the ICT sector, with major government services being digitized. There is a target to digitize 5,000 more government services in the next couple of years. This week on Inside Government, we're talking to the ICT Cabinet Secretary and Digital Economy. This is Eliud Owalo. He's going to expound more on these and, of course, the upcoming Connected Kenya Summit, which is happening next week in Diani, Kwale County. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here.
Thank you and welcome to the ministry.
Asante sana. You sit at the Apex Policy Body, Policy Formulation Body in government, and when you cast a bird's eye view of this industry, what conclusions do you make?
That we have got great potential as a country to position Kenya effectively in the global space through ICT. There are immense opportunities that we can leverage on to position Kenya effectively as the ICT hub of Africa. It is doable and we are here and ready to do it. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you see any regulatory reforms that are needed, and if you can go into specifics?
You know, we have got major interventions that we want to introduce. One, we are through the digital superhighway, which is a thematic area in our Kenya Kwanza plan. We want to roll out 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable. We want to establish and operationalize 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots spread evenly all over the country. We want to establish 1,450 digital hubs. We want to digitize all government records and digitalize all government services. In the same vein, we want to introduce a digital identity so that Kenyans can interface virtually with the government in the course of consumption of services. Mm-hmm. We are also introducing a national addressing system, just to mention but a few of the major interventions that we are having in the ICT space. Now, some of the existing policies, such as the ICT policy, will need to be reviewed to be aligned to emerging issues in the operational environment and also to be in tandem with global best practices. We have got the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act that ensures that as we consume ICT services, it is also within the confines of data protection and data security as is required. We may need just to tweak that or update that a little bit to be in tandem with the emerging trends. In a nutshell, what I can say is that on a continuous basis, we will be engaging stakeholders through relevant stakeholder fora so that we get their input as to what we need to do as a ministry to align the policy, legal and regulatory framework to best practices elsewhere, and also ensure that all interventions that we want to introduce will be anchored on a sound policy, legal and regulatory framework.
Mm-hmm. And of course this requires, substantial resources in terms of human capacity as well as financial resources. Yes. When it comes to human capacity, what is the plan to try and upscale the public service?
You see, our concern as ICT ministry, based on our mandate, is ICT human capacity across entire government. For a start, we have taken to cabinet a memo that would ensure that the ICT function is elevated to the level of a directorate in all ministries. Now, the net effect of this is that ICT personnel within the ministries will get involved in decision-making processes and levels within line ministries, as opposed to before, where ICT was basically just a unit in most of the line ministries. So we have elevated it to the level of a directorate, and we have gotten cabinet approval to that effect already, and the Ministry of Public Service has been asked to take the necessary action to that effect. That would ensure that we bring in more people at various levels, both here at the Ministry of Information Communication and the Digital Economy, and also in the line ministries. So in the not too distant future, we'll be onboarding a substantial proportion of ICT staff. We are also going to ensure that through the Ministry of Public Service, we benchmark salaries and benefits, and of course by extension the salaries and remuneration communication will ensure that the salaries and benefits levels of staff is benchmarked with what is prevailing in the market, so that we are not just attracting the relevant ICT staff, but we'll also have the capacity to retain them. Yes.
The President, Dr. William Ruto, has pronounced himself on this issue that ICT and Digital Economy is going to be a key player in these administrations' tenure. Where do you see ICT in the next 5 years?
It is the single most critical success factor for this country moving forward. If you look at our Kenya Kwanza plan, which is anchored on 5 thematic areas of agriculture, housing, universal healthcare, small and medium enterprises, and the digital superhighway, you realize that deliberately and consciously ICT was deemed as a single or a standalone thematic area. This is because it is an enabler to all the other thematic areas, and also a critical success factor moving forward. Now, we are looking at a situation where leveraging on technology in the not too distant future, we are going to run a paperless government. A government that will not have any manual processes. This would ensure that certain segments of the Kenyan society which have been experiencing challenges because of low levels of automation have got those challenges adequately addressed. Just to mention but a few, let's pick health. We want to run our health management system electronically. We must have an electronic health management system, which would ensure that at the press of a button, the medical record of an individual Kenyan can be obtained from birth to date. That will ensure that we cut down the costs, because we will not be having duplicity of effort. You move from one medical facility to another, you are being asked to undertake the same processes you had undertaken in the previous hospital that you had been to, or which you had gone through with your previous doctor. So we are targeting health. If you look at the Ministry of Lands, for example, we want to leverage on technology to ensure that our lands registry is fully automated, the processes there are fully digitalized, the records are digitized. That would unlock into the Kenyan economy a minimum of 100 billion Kenya shillings. When it comes to the Kenya Revenue Authority, we are currently collecting revenue which is below the optimal levels because of inadequate levels of digitalization. We want to enhance our revenue collection by, first of all, leveraging on technology to bring in more people into the income bracket. For a start, look at what we have done in the medium and small enterprise space. Through the Hustler Fund, there is a critical mass of Kenyans operating at the bottom of the economic pyramid who hitherto had got no means of income, but now have got access to affordable credit, and they'll now be in gainful economic activity. The import of that is that we are bringing in more Kenyans into gainful economic activity. They will now be within the income bracket, because that fund is being disbursed while leveraging on technology and also repaid using technology. They'll be now in the income bracket, and that means that we have got an additional critical mass of Kenyans who will be eligible to pay tax. What we are saying is that if we automate or digitalize all our operations, we will enhance the number of Kenyans who are in gainful economic activity, enhance the number of people who are within the revenue, the tax bracket, our tax levels will go up. If that happens, we should be able to collect adequate revenue, not just to pay off our taxes, but also to have surplus to finance our recurrent and development expenditure. Through technology, we will strengthen the immigration services. We will ensure that our border services is fully automated, just to mention but a few.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And your ministry,
yes,
you know, is the one expected to drive this digitalization of government services.
Yes.
Can you expound a little bit on that?
Well, you see, we are the internal advisor of government on all matters ICT. We are charged with the functional mandate of ensuring that we have got a sound policy framework at the apex level. And once that policy framework is in place, everything else has to be aligned to it. So, in simpler terms, what we are saying is that the entire ICT framework and any digitalization processes that we will undertake within government must be aligned to both the overall ICT policy and also our digital master plan. We have got an elaborate digital master plan on the basis of which all our ICT interventions from now up to 2032 will be anchored. That digital master plan entails the thematic areas of digital infrastructure, digital skills, digital entrepreneurship, and of course digital commerce and a sound legal policy and regulatory framework. If we have got that digital master plan and the ICT policy in place, then as we do digitalization in government, the role of the ministry therefore will be to oversee and ensure that all digitalization is aligned to the policy, aligned to the digital master plan, and also conforms to certain minimum standards as is required. Through that process, we will also ensure that we don't have duplicity of effort.
You're almost clocking 6-7 months since you came into the office.
Yes.
And it's proper to say that there has been major achievements, yes, in this industry. Would you be kind enough to enumerate some of the achievements?
We have embarked already on the digital superhighway. There are 100,000 kilometers of fiber. We are currently at 25,000 kilometers already. As government, we want to do 52,000 kilometers and the private sector 48,000 kilometers. We have already had forums of engagement between us, the integral players within the public sector and the private sector, so that we agree on what each and every integral stakeholder segment is going to deliver as far as the digital superhighway is concerned. That process has already been embarked on. We have already onboarded contractors who are going to roll out the government component of the digital superhighway. Between now and June, we envisage that we should be able to do another 5,000 kilometers between now and June alone. June alone. Annually, we envisage that we will roll out the 25,000 kilometers within the next 5 years. 25,000 kilometers every year. Yeah, to give us the sum, 20,000 kilometers every year to give us the sum total of 100,000 kilometers. We have already had a good work plan that ensures that the roles and responsibilities are clear, the targets are clear, the timelines are also clear. So in terms of meeting that threshold, it is realistic, is attainable, we are going to do it. When it comes to the 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots, again, we have already embarked on this. Our hypothesis is that by June, we shall have done a minimum of 2 free Wi-Fi hotspots in each and every county within the Republic of Kenya. Mm-hmm. We have also already embarked on the 1,450 village digital hubs, so that our youth who have not managed to go through the full hog of our formal line of education by going all the way to the university, at a minimum after Form 4, they should be able to be trained within the village digital hubs, so that they get the ICT skills that is required. And on the flip side of it, as government, we go ahead and match the skills, competencies, and capabilities domiciled within our youth with global jobs, digital jobs in the market. That will create a critical mass of jobs among our youth, digital jobs, because we no longer have white-collar jobs. So it is our proposition that we envisage that within the next 2 years we should have gotten for our youth a minimum of 2 million digital jobs, and this is work in progress. We have also gone ahead and embarked on the process of setting up the digital laboratories. This is being done through a partnership between this ministry, the Konza Technopolis, and the TVET authority under the Ministry of Education. So far, we have established about 25 digital hubs, and by June, our proposition is that we shall have established a minimum of 100,000 digital hubs within the TVETs. Of course, we will go a step further and then now establish the same in schools. In terms of the digital skills program, we have embarked on massive training. Of course, you are aware that the Ajira program has been ongoing. Through that Ajira program, we have already trained about 1 million youth over the last few years. Now we have got the Jitume program. This is the program we are launching in partnership with the TVET. And through this Jitume program, we envisage that in each and every TVET in this country, we are going to establish the digital hubs, and we'll be having a minimum of 200 devices installed in each and every one of these TVETs, so that the youth can get digital skills. That again is fundamentally in progress. As we speak, we have already established about 250 digital laboratories. Within the e-commerce, to facilitate e-commerce, we have embarked on the process of making sure that we have the national addressing system. We have already at the tail end of the policy framework. We have developed the draft policy. Now we are at the level of the stakeholder engagement. On digital entrepreneurship, we have reached out to the private sector, most so the telecommunication company. They have come together as much as they are competitors, but they have realized that they can come together to enjoy economies of scale and help us fill the void of smart but cheap smart enabled phones that we are experiencing in the market. In our proposition, we do not need to continue importing these phones from China or Korea. We have got the capacity locally here, technically and otherwise, to enable us become our own manufacturers of these phones in the long run. But for a start, we are embarking on local assembly of cheap, smart enabled phones. Based on feasibility studies that have been undertaken, we should be able to roll out these phones in the market at a unit cost of $40. Within our Konza Technopolis, we have already laid out basic infrastructure to ensure that the environment is enabling for the private sector to come in and invest in the digital space. In our view, Konza can be our own version of the Silicon Savannah, and perhaps it's the single most critical success factor that would ensure that we position this country effectively as the ICT hub of Africa. So we are appealing to the private sector to come in and invest there. We already have a data center there, a fully fledged data center where government ministries and parastatals are already onboarding their data. We view that data center as secure, and we encourage the private sector to also onboard their data there. Konza itself, based on its own reputation and the reputation of this country as a viable ICT investment destination, has managed to secure the rights to host an international ICT conference in this country next year. This will help us not just position Kenya effectively as the ICT hub of Africa, but it will be a major source of foreign exchange for this country. Approvals have already been gotten from cabinet to that effect, and Konza has embarked on the process of preparations for hosting the international conference. On policy, legal and regulatory issues, we are, of course, working in partnership with all stakeholders in the industries, embarked on the process of reviewing the laws, policies that need to be reviewed to align to emerging issues in the operational environment and also benchmark with global best practices. And some of these laws include the Communication Act, the Kenya Film Act, the Data Protection Act, and in fact we have gone a step further to operationalize the Office of the Data Commissioner. You are aware that one of the risks that we run in the face of massive digitalization is exposure to cyber attacks. So we have operationalized the Office of the Data Commissioner to ensure that there will be adequate data security and also data privacy. We have set up as government a multi-agency team that will continuously, as we digitize our records and digitalize our services, continuously they will also be looking at issues of the level of exposure to cyber attacks and coming up with an elaborate mitigation framework that would ensure that we don't expose ourselves to cyber attacks. They are monitoring the trends in cyber attacks globally and making sure that we have got an elaborate mitigation framework built around all the interventions that we are introducing. We have also put in place, because we want to pursue e-commerce, we have developed an e-commerce strategy. We are now moving to the level of operationalization and engaging all other stakeholders, including Parliament, to pass the necessary legislations to that effect. But on the hindsight of it, let me also mention that apart from this massive digitalization we have embarked on, this ministry is also charged with the responsibility of broadcasting and telecommunication. And we have embarked on deliberate steps to ensure that we revitalize the operations of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporations. We want to upgrade the infrastructure, we want to review the content and ensure that the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is effectively positioned in the market. We are similarly revitalizing the operations of the Postal Corporation of Kenya in line with e-commerce strategy, because that really is the frontier. Yeah, we want Posta to embark on major e-commerce initiatives that will ensure that it punches at the right way to the market. The other major initiative we are taking is the Kenya News Agency revitalization. We want the KNA to be the single source of news for all sector players in this country. It has got wide infrastructure spread evenly all over the country, and we want to leverage on that to ensure that it is not just collecting that news, but it can also sell that news to each and every integral player within the media industry, but of course not for free, at a revenue, which revenue can be plowed back into its operations to ensure that we revitalize its operations. So in a nutshell, those are some of the major initiatives that we have embarked on. Yeah, and the future is bright.
The future is bright.
Yes.
And it's proper to say that, this is what you'd call a packed entry for you, and of course for your team. When you look at the universal digital coverage, Kenya is a member of the King's Bloc, which is a block of 5 digital superpowers in Africa. We have Kenya, you have Ivory Coast, you have Nigeria, you have Ghana, you have South Africa. But still, when you look at our situation here in the country, the digital gap is still a major challenge, and especially more in the underserved communities, as well as what we call the gender digital divide, whereby women, their representation in the ICT sector is about 30%. What are the strategies in place to ensure that this gap is filled?
What happens when you allow the private sector to solely do its bit? Everything that they do will be driven by profit motivation. What brings about marginalization of certain regions by way of ICT infrastructure is that the private sector doesn't find it viable to roll out fiber in those places, for example. But we have got the Universal Service Fund. In those areas which are not adequately served by way of ICT infrastructure or fiber optic cable to be specific, the government has already mapped out those areas, and through our Universal Service Fund, we will ensure that we take fiber to those areas. So that will be addressed. As we do all the digitization processes, of course, we are alive to the fact that we need to undertake comprehensive mainstreaming, not just from a gender perspective, but in all aspects. So that again is work in progress. That as we do the digitalization, we will ensure that no critical segment of the Kenyan society, be it based on gender or be it based on age set, will be left behind. We want to carry aboard everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also talking about filling the digital gap, the cost. Yes. Of broadband in this country, is rated to be higher among the king's countries. What strategies are there in place to ensure that we suppress the cost of broadband or cost of access to internet?
The cost of any commodity or service is informed by the cost of inputs which go into the intermediary or productive processes. Now, one of the interventions that we need to introduce in this digital infrastructure space is the concept of shared infrastructure. For example, if one telecommunication company has already laid out ICT infrastructure or fiber in a given area, there is no need why correspondingly again another one should lay out infrastructure in the same area. We need to come up with a legal framework or policy framework that would ensure that entities involved in the digital space can share infrastructure. That would lead to a fundamental reduction in their overall operational costs, which will be transferred to the final consumer by way of reduction in the cost of data.
Now turning on to the upcoming Connected Kenya Summit,
yes.
When you look at the last 12 years, this has become a critical platform in the growth of ICT industry in this country and the region at large. And when you look at the theme for this year is endless opportunities and shaping of our future, what are your thoughts on this topic and your guidance on what you'd like to see the conversations achieved there?
Now, one, let me start by stating that this is a very, very viable initiative, because it is a forum that enables you to bring on board all the integral players in the ICT industry at one table for purposes of discussion, to discuss the challenges faced, be able to design the opportunities which exist, develop a common position on what needs to be done to exploit those opportunities. So it is a fundamental program. It is imperative that once in a while we get together so that we discuss these issues as members of the ICT family. So that, in my view, is imperative, and it cannot be gainsaid that it is a very, very important forum. As far as the objective or the theme of this year's forum is concerned, there are endless opportunities that we can leverage on by way of ICT. And I've just mentioned one, which is the digital jobs. We no longer have white-collar jobs. If we leverage on technology, we can acquire a critical mass of digital jobs for our youth. If we leverage on technology, we can enhance the efficiency, the levels of efficiency and the effectiveness in our service delivery, and also re-engineer our business processes. So the benefits of ICT are enormous. I would wish to see, as an integral output of this forum, how we can leverage on ICT not just to reduce the costs of production, how that cost of production can translate into a reduction in the cost of living, because the cost of living has been a major concern. If we can come up with sound propositions as to how, by leveraging on ICT, we can reduce the cost of living, to me, that will be a game changer. If we can come up with a clear roadmap as to how we can create jobs while leveraging on technology, that to me will be an integral benefit from this program. Because one of the fundamental challenges we are facing as a country, not just here but elsewhere, is high levels of unemployment. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I would also wish to see very clear policy and legal propositions that need to be addressed moving forward in line with changes and emerging issues in the operational environment, and while keeping also in tandem with global best practices. If those could be siphoned out and profiled, then it will give us a clear roadmap as to what we need to do as government to align to emerging trends within the ICT industry, and also benchmark with global best practices from the policy and legal and regulatory affairs perspective. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, you know, it's a good platform, definitely, you know, Connected Kenya Summit. But what is good, it can get better. Yes. How can we make the Connected Kenya Summit, you know, not only a Kenyan affair, but a regional platform, an African platform, and a global platform where ICT issues are discussed, where major decisions are made? You
know, you start by calling, already have a Kenyan forum. I believe we have got the capacity to host an African forum, and in the not too distant future also a global forum. I mentioned to you that Konza is already hosting a global ICT conference next year. So we can also have an African connected forum and a global connected forum being hosted here in Kenya. That will not just enable our locals showcase their innovations in the global ICT space, but it will also be a major source of foreign exchange reserves for this country. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Before I let you go, of course you have enumerated so much that needs to be achieved within this space. Can you paint for us a picture of how this industry would look by the year 2027?
We'll be running a paperless government. As a country, we'll be running a paperless government, and that is why we are preparing people for that. We are embarking on the process of ensuring that we have got a digital identity for all Kenyans, so that once we digitize all records and we digitalize all services, Kenyans will not need to visit government offices to consume services. If they have a digital ID, they can consume services from the comfort of wherever they are, including but not limited to their own homes. That will be a critical change within this country, that we are not using manual processes anymore. And we are not just doing this at the level of national government. This week we have got a meeting already with the ICT committee of the Council of Governors, and whatever we are doing at national government level will be done at county government level. So we are moving in tandem. So to me, running a paperless government and making sure that all our processes are digitalized will be a critical success for this country.
Very well. Anything else you need to add?
Well, we are appealing to all players to join hands with government in this major initiative. Most of the initiatives that we are embarking on require high levels of stakeholder alliances and partnerships. We are willing as government to partner with the private sector in most of the initiatives that we are undertaking, and we believe that in the not too distant future we should be able to realize our vision of an empowered and digitalized Kenyan society. We can, through these ICT initiatives, position Kenya effectively by way of comparative advantage in the global marketplace.
Very well.
Yeah.
Bwana Waziri, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on KBC. Yes. And your insight and input is highly appreciated.
Thank you very much. It was indeed my pleasure.
Thank you very much. What we have been talking to information, communication and the digital economist here is Owalo, enumerating to us the achievements of the ministry and the targets that they are in the next 5 years and beyond. And of course, you have heard it from him, the strategies in place to ensure that we cement the position of Kenya as a digital superpower in Africa. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. You have been watching KBC Channel 1. Thank you.